relational algebra, and mostly I have seen how when you are writing a complicated select clause, okay, how it is basically converted to the relational algebraic expression. We have discussed lot of example, and hopefully it is clear to you how basically it is generating those expression from the SQL. Okay, and what is the actually look of those expression, because that is very important, because when we'll just discuss the query optimization, then frequently we have to refer that expression. Okay, actually, although you are just giving the SQL into the database, ultimately it is generating that expression. So we have to analyze that expression, not the SQL, when you are basically trying to optimize your query. Now I will cover some of the extended relational algebra operation. What are those? There are mainly, there are a lot of things are there, but I am not going to touch everything. I will just discuss some of the operation which is frequently used in different expression. One is called the generalized projection. Actually, this sign already we have encountered in one of the example earlier, but I have not explained in detail what does it mean. Okay. Actually, generalized expression is similar to the generalized projection is similar to the simple projection, which we have already encountered. Basically, it is projecting in the simple expression. We are projecting only some column of the table, okay, or attribute of the table. But in the generalized projection, basically means that you are projecting some arithmetic expression. Mind me, if that means F1 is an arithmetic expression, or maybe a column, mind it, or combination of everything. Okay, you just try to remember in when you are writing the select clause, in the select list, column list, we can refer the single column or maybe combination, some arithmetic operation on the column, or by or something different type of arithmetic expression you can also use in the select clause. Actually, this is a type of operation through which you are basically doing that thing. F1, F2 up to Fn, these are all arithmetic expression. That means it is a combination of maybe one or more than one column. Okay, then it is called the generalized projection. Okay, that means when there is no, in this particular function, there is no arithmetic expression, it is only plain column, then it will be like your simple projection. Okay, so these are actually operation wise, there is not much difference. Only thing is that in this type of generalized projection, you can use the arithmetic operation. Take for example, I have a credit information table. I want to find out the customer name and credit limit minus balance. So this is an arithmetic expression. In addition to that, there is a column. Okay, so in that case, when you are going to use the arithmetic expression without using this simple projection, you should use the generalized projection. Okay. Similarly, you just see that thing. Here also, I am using that thing, arithmetic expression. At the same time, I can use a alias. That means this particular column, which is a calculated column, I will be just give a alternate name for this column, credit available. We are basically using the same technique in the select, okay, as some alias for calculated column, so that that particular alias should appear as a column heading. Okay, so same technique here, we are using this thing. Okay, next one is the call aggregate function and operations. Actually, if you just see, I have already discussed the group by clause and different aggregate function in the actually in SQL. Actually, when you are writing those group by function and the aggregate function, it is converted to the aggregate function operation of relational algebra. How actually it is represented with the help of G or F. Generally, into when you are writing the expression, you can just indicate this with the help of G or F. Okay, what is the total? Okay, that means here what it is doing, an aggregated function takes a collection of value and return a single value. You know that when you are giving the sum of something, some column in a particular table, it is adding all these things and returning the sum. Okay, If you really want to just write that type of thing into the relational algebra, you have to write, see, G, I have told you this symbol. When you are giving G, F1, A1, F2, F2 up to this and E, what does it mean? From the E relation, we are basically taking A1, A2 up to AN different type of different attribute and performing this type of aggregate function on it and then return the result. If you, in addition to that, if you really want to just impose some grouping thing, grouping clause, that means group wise total I want to then you have to mention the group in the left hand side. That means that means here the grouping part is the optional part, mind it, because you can find out all the sum of a particular attribute of the table without any grouping clause. Then what you will do, it will just add all the record of that particular table and provide you the result. But if you really group-wise break, if you really want, you can just keep the appropriate group in the left-hand side. And this is basically, you can say, the alternative or maybe representation of the group by clause in select in the relational algebra. Okay, just take some examples, then it will be more clear. Say, here, if you just see, I have a table name, salary, department, and all other thing. I want to find out what is the sum of the salary. That means basically I want to sum this thing. Okay, so actually in the SQL, what we'll get, you will get the 100, 300, and 200, 500. Okay, because we know that in SQL, you are not, null is not added. Basically, null is all dropped because we cannot add null with any other value, valid value. So naturally it will drop and you will get the result. If you really want to represent that same operation in the your what is called the relational algebra, then you should write that E is your table. So you, what function you want to use? Sum of salary, and then you have to indicate it with the help of F. This is indicating that either F or G, whatever you like. If it indicates that you apply this aggregate function to E, that means automatically it will apply everything to all the record into the table and return you 500. Just remember one thing here, there are two record here, both are 100. I have already told you that in the relational algebra, if you just operate on that tuple, then automatically it actually drop the duplicate. But in this case, it will not drop the duplicate. Okay. In this case, it will just add and give that thing. Okay. So please remember that when you are applying this aggregate function, it is not dropping the duplicate, although it is a relational operation. Okay. Now just see here, I want to find out count of salary. That means how many, basically what it will give, that it will give the how many employees are there. Okay, I have given select count of salary from E. Okay, here if you want to write that thing, then you can write count of salary E. Okay, similarly, if you just see the what should be the count? Okay, the count should be 3. Okay, because salary, if you just see in the salary field, what is that? Okay. In the salary field, basically, what are the total number of record? These are the 3, so it is counting 3. But if you just give a projection, that means you are giving the projection of salary E, that means you are projecting the salary column and then you count. Okay, count the salary. Then what will happen? As you have already done another relational operation, okay, before counting, this particular relational operation will automatically drop the duplicate. That means here hundreds are dropped. So you will get only 1 record. Okay. And then that is the reason you are getting the 2. Count is 2. Okay. Although it is basically count is actually that is represented here in the SQL as distinct salary. If you really want have that type of requirement, then you can use the distinct salary. Okay, in case of relational algebra, there is no distinct clause because actually relational algebra inherent property is the distinct. It will automatically drop the thing. For dropping that thing, you first apply a project operation on the E to duplicate, drop the duplicate and then count. Okay, Now we just seek an aggregate and group by function, both if you really want to add. Okay, here department wise I want to just get the result. I in the SQL I have given the SQL also side by side so that you can just find the similarity. Okay, if you just write this select sum of salary, it is group by D. What does it mean? That means it will automatically show you the department wise total salary. So here what I do get A and C because B is not there, is no employee in the B. Okay, so automatically I will get that thing. Okay, now you just see that thing. If you just write sum of salary E and department, then you automatically will get that thing. Okay, okay. You can also বলো বলো
স্যার বলছি ওই যে ড্রপ আউটটা ব্যাপারটা বুঝলাম না, মানে ডুপ্লিকেটটা ড্রপ আউট করলেন।
Okay, duplicate-টা বুঝলে না? Okay. Now you just see that here, actually I have already told you that if you perform any relational operation on a particular relation, the inherent property of the operator is to duplicate rejection. It will, if that result set has any duplicate record, it will automatically drop the duplicate. Okay, that is a property, inherent property. But in case of aggregate function, if you just write that thing, in that case it is not dropping the duplicate, only this case. Okay, if you use any actually aggregate function, just that is the reason. If you just see, although f is a actually relational operator, but if we are applying the aggregate function, it is not dropping the duplicate, and that is the reason I am getting the 500 is the result. Okay, now you just see here, here I am just wanting to count the salary. Okay, and here the same thing, because I am not basically grouping actually as we are using this salary count of salary, we are not, it is not actually dropping the duplicate, and that is the reason I will get 3. Okay, because null value will be automatically ignored. Okay, so naturally I will get 3. But say suppose I try to just do a projection operation on E. That means if you just do the projection operation, you will just select only the salary column. Now you just see in the salary column there is a duplicate. Okay, 100, here is 100, there is also 100. I'm also picking the salary column. Okay, so naturally the project operator what it will do, it will drop the duplicate. Okay, that means result will be only 100, one of the 100 and 300. Okay, so I will get, if you just do that thing, then we will get the two record count is 2. Okay, that is the basically thing we are doing. Actually, if you just really do that thing, what actually in the SQL you are basically doing, you are writing a distinct clause. What does it mean in the SQL? That means SQL you are writing a distinct clause. If you just give the distinct salary, then also we'll get only 300 and 100. Okay, 100 and on record 300. So count will be 2. So this is basically equivalent thing. SQL, this SQL will be converted to this type of relational expression. Understand?
Yes sir, means that 100 value will be dropped.
100 value will be actually, as soon as you project this thing, what should be the result? It will pick up this 100, then 300. After that, as soon as you find that there is another 100, it will automatically 100 is picked in the result, so it will be dropped. Okay, so this is the inherent property of any set operation. Okay, duplicate from the result, it will drop the duplicate. Okay, now just see this thing. Okay, now let's see the outer join. We have already find the inner join or plain join, sometimes we call this thing, and equijoin and other things we have already discussed. Then let's see what is outer join, why it is required, and that is the most important. We'll cover the outer join in more detail in the SQL part, where basically we need to write the different type of outer join to satisfy the different query of the user. Here we just see the what is outer join in the relational algebra side. Okay, see suppose I have a table, what is called the employee table. I have 3 record of the employee, and there is a department table. Okay, that the department name and your department number is there. Okay, actually there is a basically you can say that there is a actually foreign key relationship between this department and D number of the department. Now, if we just observe this thing, B is a sales, B department, this is a sales department. Although sales department is there in the department table, but there is no employee in the sales department. Okay. Now, in this case, if you write a plain join and try to find out something, you will get the fruitful result, some fruitful result, but all types of results cannot be derived from the inner join. Let's say we want to know the number of employee at each department. What is your expectation that you will get that for A, it will say 1. Someone has, I think you have opened it. Please mute. Someone is not in the mute state. Please mute it. Okay, I'm getting some noise. Okay. Now we just see that thing here. If you write a join, plain join, that means E join department where both the department are same. That is the inner join basically you are writing. Okay. If you just do the inner join and then you try to count star, okay, and count star and then group by basically department number and this. So corresponding SQL, if you just see, I have written that means I try to find out number of employee in the H department. What is your expectation, expected result? You should say that it will give the department A has 2 employee, department B has 0 employee, and department C has 1 employee. That is the result, expected result. But if you write it plain inner join like this, that I have joined this team on the basis of the department and try to find out the count star, that means total number of count, and then group it on the department number and then I will get A and C. B has vanished. Okay. Now we just see here, select, I have written select this and this count star, this 3 column I have done by joining the A and B, where department number is equal to this group by NR number and D name. Can anybody say why I have given the 2 column in the group by clause? Why not 1 is sufficient? Why I am giving the 2 thing? By seeing the SQL, can anybody say? Any idea?
May you repeat the question once again?
In the select clause, if you just see, I have just creating this string result set, department number, department name, and count of this. This is the aggregation function. So naturally, I have written a group by clause, group by DR number, D name. Why I have given two columns? Because if I know DR number, then D name must be unique. So naturally, I can use any one of the column, but I have given 2 column. Why?
Sir, because automatically ওটা count হয়ে যায়, মানে হয়ে যাবে।
No. Can you বলতে পারবে why I am using the 2 column in the group by clause, not only 1 column? Group by clause কেউ পড়েনি. Nobody has seen the group by clause in my note. Now we just see that thing in the group by clause. When you are writing the group by clause, the one condition is that in the select clause can contain only the column which is appearing in the group by clause or aggregate column. Okay. So if I just give that, say suppose DR number, D number and count, and I have give the group by DR number, not the D name, then what will happen? There is a column in D name which is not a aggregate column, and it is also not appearing in the group by. So if you write this type of select, then you will get an error, because in the select group by clause, the main condition is that if you use a group by clause and the column list can contain only the column which is appearing in the group by clause or some aggregate column, okay, that rule will be violated, and that is the reason I have used both the column here. Now we just see that thing, I have get this thing. But this is not the correct result, as if it is not saying that there is a department B at all. Okay, because so naturally it might not satisfy your user. User expectation is that there should, in the result, there should be one row which indicates that B is another department and count should be 0. So how we can do that thing? Actually, for that, basically, we need to just create the outer join. Actually, try to understand that the inner join, in case of inner join, it is basically uh, fetching all the tuple in both the table which has a matching value in the join column. Mind it, matching value in the join column. If there is an unmatched value, that means one record is there in one table and another record does not have the same value in the join column, then it will automatically not come, automatically be dropped. But if you really want that thing, sometimes it is needed, because to satisfy this query, what you have to do, you have to pick up all this column, all this row from the department column, department table, and the row which are matching. It is not that all, if everything is the join column is matching in both the table, then only you pick up, like your inner join. So in this type of cases, basically you have to use the outer join. Okay, so in that case, if you just write that select star from E, write outer join D on this, then what will happen, if you just see, it will pick up all the department record from the department table. If you just see now, all the column A, C, A, B has come from the B, has also come from the department column. And in case of this thing, I have a matching record in the employee table, so all those employee information is coming. Okay, but for B row, actually B department, there is no matching column, matching row in the other side. Okay, so in the left column, so automatically all this field will be null. Okay, now we are basically getting a result set which contains all the department as well as their respective employee if it is there, or null if there is no null employee. Actually, on this particular result set, if you try to find out the count, then only we will get the correct result. Okay, so I need this type of result creation, and that is only possible with the help of outer join. In this case, we have to write E, right outer join. This is the joining condition D. What is right outer join means? Right and left. Actually, if you consider this is the operation, who is the right side, D is the right side, and left, E is the left side. If you really want all the record from D will participate in the join, then you should write right outer join. If you want all the record, irrespective of matching or not, all the record from the left side will join into the particular result set, then you have to say left outer join. Okay, that is the difference between the left and right. In the SQL, I will write lot of right, left, and all those things, and then it will be more and more clear. But here, if you just to satisfy that type of query, I have to pick up all the record of the department, irrespective whether there is an employee or not, into the employee table. And that is the case. In that case, we have to write the right outer join D. Mind it, if you just use the D in the left side and E in the right side, naturally you have to write the left outer join, because I want to pick up all the record from the D left outer join A. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rule that which one we should pick up in the left side or right side, which is right, and accordingly you have to change only the type of the join. There are two types of join, right, left. Here in this case, as D is the right side of my join, I am writing the right outer join. Now you just see that I got the full actual result set where all the department is coming as well as is employee. If there is employee, all the employee, otherwise it is null is coming. If I apply the count clause now, then I will get some result which might be close to my real result. Now here, if I am writing the same thing, select clause using the right outer join, not the inner join, and count star. Okay, if you just do that thing, and in the case of actually relational algebra side, I am just creating the right outer join here, and then I am counting and grouping. Okay, so if you write that thing, then what it is saying? It is saying count is 2. That is true. There are 2 employees. B is 1, and legal it is saying 1. Okay, legal is the count star will count the null value 2. Mind it. Other, say like earlier I have seen that when you are counting, it is basically not counting the null value. But if you write the count star, then automatically it will count the null value also. Okay, and if it counts the null value, okay. Hello, আমি ক্লাসে আছি এখন, হ্যাঁ? Okay, so naturally you just see that thing. In this case, if you use the star, then automatically it will count the counted null value also, and that is the reason you are getting B cells 1. And it is definitely, it is not right thing, because I want this thing. Cells, there is no employee, so I want in that case we should write that you should just give a count some column you have to refer. Okay, some column you have to refer, not the count star. And that is the difference between count star and count a particular column. Okay, so if you just give a particular column, in that case it will automatically just ignore the actually null thing, and it will consider only 0. Okay, and it will give the result 0. And this is the correct result I am expecting from this type of query. Okay, so this is basically more or less the outer join thing. Okay, now so far we have discussed all the select thing, basically how to retrieve the data from the table with the help of relational algebra. Does it mean that I cannot do any other operation? It's not. Actually, you can do all the DML operation. Okay, say suppose if you really want to actually see how the delete operation is performed into the database with the help of relational algebraic expression, if you just see, that is basically nothing but a minus operation. R minus E, say suppose E is a tuple or set of tuples which we want to delete from the R relational relation, then you can just perform the R minus E, and then you can get that particular result set, which is and there is no E, actually E tuple there. Okay, just take an example, then you will understand that thing. Depositor is my relation. With the help of, I want to delete the depositor whose name is Smith. Okay, then what I'll do, I will try to first select that particular record by using the select operator. Select customer name is equal to Smith and depositor. Okay, so I will get one particular record from that thing, and then I should do the negative of minus operation, deposit minus deposit, and that result you should just push into the deposit result set, your relation. Then automatically that particular resultant depositor, okay, will have all the record except this record, okay, or set of record. Okay, similarly deleting all the loan with the amount in the range 0 to 5. If you really want to do that thing, then similarly you just select that particular loan tuple with the help of the predicate, appropriate predicate, writing the appropriate predicate, and then perform this thing. This is basically the deleting operation, okay, using the relational algebraic expression. Delete all account. বলো
স্যার ডিপোজিটারে কি মানে আপনার এই পার্টিকুলার ডেটাটা মানে ওই টেবিল থেকে ডিলিট করে দিচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, ডিলিট করে। প্রথমে আমি বার করলাম যে সিম্পল কনসেপচুয়ালি ভাবো, তুমি ম্যানুয়ালি ভাবো একটা কি করবে, যে আমার একটা টেবিল আছে, তার মধ্যে ডাটাগুলো আছে, তুমি একটা পার্টিকুলার ডাটাকে ডিলিট করতে চাও, তুমি ইরেজার দিয়ে করতে হলে কি করতে হবে, ওইখানে গিয়ে ওটা মুছে দেবে, তাই তো? ম্যানুয়ালি যদি করো। সিমিলারলি এখানেও যেমন তাই করছে, কি করছে, যে ফার্স্ট it will select that particular record. Here I am selecting that particular, then I am doing the negative operation. If you just remember the negative operation earlier, what it is doing basically, it is copying all the tuple from that relation to another result set except that particular tuple. Okay, it is basically doing that thing, same thing. Okay, so manual operation kotha bhabo, then you just try to think that thing. It is very easy. Same thing, same set operation. Actually, this type of set operation you have already learned in the mathematics also. Okay, delete all account at branch located in Nidam. Okay, how do I do that? Say account and branch, have joined that thing because in the account maybe that branch name is not there. Okay, say I have just done that, then select that all these account which have the branch city is this. Okay, then I have got that means now R, actually this R I have to delete from my actually relation. Now in this case what I have done, basically I am basically selecting some of the column. It might be very big one, that is the reason I have used the generalized your projection thing and pick up only this thing, the 3-4 column, and then I'm just doing the negative operation to delete that particular thing. Okay, now insert is also same concept. I have a table. If you really want to insert a record, what you will do, it will basically add at the end. Okay, that is the common sense. Okay, if you have manually, you have a already recorded lot of record in a particular table, what you will do that you will manually write that other information which is coming at the end of the table. We are doing that same operation. Basically, that is basically called the union. As soon as you add union that particular tuple which you really want to add, okay, it will be added there. Okay, now just see here, I am just wanting to add this particular tuple in the account record. Okay, and then what we have done, that account, okay, account is my relation. This I give the union, and then I create a set with this three information. We are assuming that the account table has only these three column, and not only that, if there is any constant on the column, the value is matching with that constant. It is not violating that constant. If it is so, then if I just do the union, that means it is as good as adding that particular record into thing. Okay. Similarly, for depositor, I have done this thing, and here I have given some another example, slightly complicated. If you just go through it, I hope you will be able to understand. Similarly, for updating, here also updating, if you just see that I have given a result and you just go through it, I hope that you will understand. It is not very difficult at all. By using all the operation which you have already learned, okay, it is performing that thing. Okay, so these are the three, actually, that means with the help of relational algebra, you can do basically all your DML operation. Okay, but only thing is that nowadays no relation RDMS is accepting the actually the relational algebraic expression now from the user. So naturally there is no other use. You cannot use the relational algebraic expression for your query purpose. You need to write the SQL. But internally, after writing the SQL, okay, that query engine, I have already mentioned that thing, query engine is automatically convert that relational or SQL part into the relational algebraic expression. And that time basically it is possible that it will convert that same SQL into more than one relation algebraic expression, and then it is picking up the most efficient one. That is basically called the optimization. That part we'll cover next in the at the end part. Okay, so this is the more or less the relational algebra part I have covered, and hope you have understood everything. And if not, you just go through it, and if there is any confusion or question, you can always ask. Okay, now I'm going to start the next topic. Okay. Actually, as I have told you that we have changed the syllabus little bit in this year, included some more actually modern topic and excluded something, okay, from the earlier syllabus. So here, that is the reason I have just provided the what are the portion we have included in this syllabus for the functional dependency part. Okay, and so this is the basically syllabus part I have added. Okay, you have already actually seen the integrity constant. What does it mean and how we are actually implementing it at the database level in this with the help of SQL? We have already seen it. Integrity constant, we know that is the most important one is the integrity constant on admissible domain value. That means while you are basically writing anything in the actually creating the column, you are providing the data type. Data type is basically nothing but restricting the value based on certain rule. Okay, if I say it is an integer, it will not allow you to enter the integer, allow you to enter any string value, or vice versa maybe. Now, in addition to that, we can just write some not null or check constant. What does it mean? That means we are, in addition to that, basically fundamental domain values. Okay, in addition to that, I'm applying some more condition. Okay, applying some additional rule or condition. In this way, basically, those are basically also the domain constraint also. And another type of integrity constraint we have already discussed, that is called the intertuple relationship. That means in this your foreign key clause and all those things. Here, between the two tuples, there is some relationship we have already discussed. In this chapter, we are going to discuss the functional dependency, which is another type of constraint and which is also actually implemented with the help of different type of integrity constraint. We have already seen that thing. Okay, although several type of data dependency have been reported, they are maybe broadly classified in the two category. One is sometimes we call the equality generation dependency, and another is the tuple generation dependency. Actually, functional dependency is a part of the first category, and the multi-valued and joint dependency is the part of the tuple generation dependency. Okay, so this part we'll cover later on when we'll cover the fourth or fifth normal form and all those things. And but functional dependency we are covering because the functional dependency will be needed for the earlier normal forms, and so that concept is very much needed. Okay, now let's see first before starting the functional dependency thing. Actually, let's try to understand why it is needed, why this concept is needed, or where I should apply that thing. Okay, that is very more important, I think. Actually, when you are designing the database, okay, there are generally two procedures we follow. I have already told you that starting thing is that first one is called modeling plus decomposition approach. Okay, I have already told that thing when we have discussed the ER diagram and all those things, that how we are basically going to create the database design. First, what is the step here? Gather information about the application and analyze. I have already told that when you are basically discussing with your user, try to capture all those information and create actually which is needed for creating the data model. Then find functional dependency between the attribute. You have to find out that thing. Relationship, you have, when you are basically understanding the relationship, that time, and not only relationship, and by understanding the semantics of the attribute. Okay, understanding the semantics of the attribute, you have to find out the functional dependency. Okay, so you have to understand all the attributes. That is very much important, and then only you can find it out how these attributes are related with each other. Okay, so you have to understand the meaning of those attributes, their value you have to analyze and check how it is dependent on another thing like this. Okay, and then basically after understanding everything, we are basically depicting everything in the ER diagram. Okay, because in the ER diagram, you know that you have to depict the attribute, you have to depict the relationship, everything, and then define the ER diagram. Okay, actually we have to I have already told you it is not a one-time procedure. Maybe in the next time, lot of other attribute will come. You have to incorporate. In this way, process will just refinement process will go on. You have to convert the many-to-many. So one example is, as soon as we find out there is a many-to-many relationship exists between the two relations, then we have to introduce another relation in between to implement that thing. In this way, you have to complete your ER diagram. Okay, and then the resultant table you have to examine and then normalize it if necessary. After that, if you just see that it's still necessary that you need to normalize means basically decompose the table. If it is a big table, if you find there is a chance of anomaly while you are doing the lot of operation on this update, insert or delete operation, there is a chance of anomaly, then you have to decompose. That means divide the table, create two or more tables. Okay, that normalization technique we will discuss this thing. And this second, actually, most of the cases in the industry, we are using this technique. We create the ER diagram, okay, that's ultimately we are getting almost all the table, okay, and its attribute, their relationship we have understood. And after that, we start applying the normalization, examining every table and checking whether this is violating at least up to third normal form or not. Okay, if it is not violating, fine. Otherwise, you just decompose the table and just prepare more and more table. In this way, ultimately, you are getting all the table. And there is another approach that is basically pure algorithmic decomposition approach. Okay, it is more theoretical thing, like you can say that thing, because until and unless heavy knowledge on lot of things, mathematical thing is there, okay, you cannot basically do that thing. And you know that in industry does not depend only the mathematics. Okay, lot of analytical skill and other things basically you have to apply so that you can quickly do your job. That is also very important. Okay, now pure algorithmic decomposition approach. Here in this case, what we will do, first part, the analysis and information gathering part is same. Okay, then you have to find out the functional dependency also, because so now we just see that in both the approach, if you just take the first approach or second approach, you have to find out the functional dependency. So naturally, the question is that you have to understand what is functional dependency. Okay, and what are the things you should understand. Actually, also understand that if there is a redundant functionality, how should I actually ignore that particular redundancy, avoid that redundancy, or if I need to find out which one from the relation, which one is my key, which should be the key. And all those things you have to understand and find out with the help of this functional dependency concept. Okay, and after that, in this case, what we'll do, put all the attribute into one large relation. Mind it, here we have not done the ER diagram. So you have examined all the attribute, find out the functional dependency and everything. Now I have to create the table. How will create? We just put everything in a large table and then systematically normalize one after another. Maybe from the big fat table, you create 2-3 tables, then take individual table, try to find out, understand everything, and if there is another chance of, and again divide it. In this way, you ultimately break down everything and ultimately reach the final schema. Okay, this is another approach. So functional dependency plays an important role in the database design. Okay, so that is the reason we need to actually understand the functional dependency well. Okay, because otherwise, if you do not understand the function well, then FD well, then you will not able to do the normalization also well. Okay, so here first part I have just few notation, which actually these are all mathematical notation, and most of the cases I forget all those things, and that is the reason I have given one chart here, so that if anybody needs to refer that thing, you come back and just check that thing. It is not basically not it is familiar to you, but it's very difficult to remember for me. Okay, now let's see, try to first, before giving the formal definition of the functional dependency, let's see with the try to understand that thing with the help of an example. I have the employee table, employee relation, maybe employee number, employee name, salary, and city. Okay, now if you just examine that data, mind it, I have already told you, if you try to find out the functional dependency, you have to understand every attribute. Then only you can find out. Say, if you just look into this particular table, you find that employee number we can obtain. If you know the employee number, okay, you can obtain employee name, salary, and city. Okay, that means employee number. If you know the employee number, automatically you can get. You can just check that particular record and get the record. Okay, so we can say that the city, employee number, and salary are functionally dependent on employee number. Okay, that is one attribute determines other attribute. Okay, in the DPN star, that is the thing. So naturally, what if you really want to find out all the functional dependency, you have to find out that thing, which are the attribute set or a particular attribute depends on another attribute. So all possible thing you have to find out. Now let's try to formally try to define that thing. Say take this example, sir, I have pictorially represent that thing. I have a relation, there are a lot of tuples. T1 is 1, T2 is 1. Okay. If I, by examining, I'm saying that by examining that particular data, what I have found that T1x, that means x is basically the combination of these three tuple, x1, x2, x3. T1x equal to T2x, if I find that thing. And at the same time, the same tuple, I find the T1y is equal to also T2y. Then I can say the y depends on x. Understand? So you have to find out this set in that particular relation. You have to find out a set of attributes where if the value in the two tuple are equal and correspondingly, if you just find out a set of attributes where the values are also same, then you can say that this y basically depends on x. Okay, that is a functional dependency. Actually, in this way, you have to find out the functional dependency. Okay, in other words, you can say at any instance of time, the relation cannot contain. Hello. এই আমি ক্লাসে আছি এখন একটু কথা বলতে পারছি না ক্লাসে না পরে না Okay, now in other words, at any instance of time, the relation cannot contain two tuples that agree in all attributes in the set X, yet disagree in one or more attributes in Y. That means at any instance of time, mind it, why instance of time is coming to the picture? Because while there is a table, always basically you are updating the record. At a particular time, you see that thing. Okay, and then try to examine. If there is any disagreement, X, okay, there is a disagreement. But if there is an agreement in X, that means both are things, then there cannot be actually inequality between these two things. Then only you can say it is this. Okay, so this is very important actually concept. So you have to find out in this way whether there is a functional dependency between two set of attributes or not. Actually, it is actually mathematically or pictorially, actually you can say symbolically, how to denote that thing? X arrow Y. Okay, here you have to read that Y is functionally depend on X. Okay, right side is functionally depend on X. And that is the reason we can left side attribute or attribute set, mind it. Here I am showing only one attribute does not mean always it is a one attribute, it can be a set. Okay, if that particular set is basically called the determinant, and this set is called the dependent. Okay, this is determinant, this is dependent. Okay, so this is basically in this way. In throughout our discussion, if you just see, we are representing the functional dependency in this way. Okay, take an example that this is my table: supplier number, city, part number, and quantity. That means here we are recording what are the different parts supplied by different supplier and how much quantity it is. Okay, and if you just see, examine that data, if you just see that city depends on S1. That means I can say S number is this, because obviously, because supplier basically exists in a particular city, whether it supply the P1 or P2 in material. Okay, and that is the reason if you just see the data from that, it is obvious to you that the city depends on supplier, because he is only located in one city. If he is more than one city, definitely it might be different. Okay, but in this case, it is same. A functional dependency is a property or of the semantics or meaning of the attribute. Mind it, it is a property or meaning of the attribute. It is not like that you are introducing the functional dependency. When there is a data, okay, it is an inherent property of the data that it will depend on another data. Okay, so you are not doing anything. Only thing is that it is a semantic meaning. You have to find it out, and you have to try to find out what type of functionality exists into that particular data set. You are not introducing anything. Okay, it is inherently there. Okay, so naturally that is the reason if you really try to find out what type of functional dependency exists, you have to understand the meaning properly. Okay, by checking all the data. Here, as I have told you, that after seeing that thing, we know the what is city. Okay, and we know the what is S number. Okay, that is indicates uniquely this supplier number. Then naturally, that from this data, it is obvious anybody can understand that there is a relationship between the city and this. Because after, as soon as I got that S2, I am finding that city is different. Okay, so in this way, you have to find out. This database, the database designer need to understand the semantics of the attributes of R to specify the FD that should hold on the all relational state R of R at a particular state of the relation. Okay, at a particular point, if there are set of records, by seeing that thing, understanding meaning, you have to find out the functional dependency. Whenever the semantics of two sets of attribute in R indicates that a functional dependency should hold, we specify the function dependency as a constant. As soon as I find that there is a this is thing is available as a functional dependency, then we can say that this type of constraint exists in the database. When you are basically designing the database, you should obey this particular constraint. Okay, you have to check. You should not do anything where basically it can be violated. Okay, so you have to, that is the result functional dependency. We also call it is a constant. There are different type of functional dependency. One is called fully functional dependent. That means if X is this full functional dependency, then Y is functionally dependent on X. Y is not functionally dependent on X of any proper subset of X. Y is dependent on X. Say suppose X contains 3 attributes. Okay, now in this set there are 3 attributes. If you drop one attribute, then again if you just see that particular data, that functionality does not exist. So that is that. What does it mean? That means if you take a proper subset of X, okay, the Y is not the functional dependent upon the proper subset. If it is that type of thing, then we call it is a fully functional dependent. That means Y is fully functional dependent. But if it is not so, then I will call the first. If you just ignore any one attribute from this side, okay, still the functional dependency holds good, then we can say that it is partially functional dependent. Say, take an example here. Say staff ID and name, okay, branch ID. Branch ID depends upon staff ID and name. Okay, if you just, so this, there in the left side there are 2 attributes. In the right side there is 1 attribute. Now if I take a subset, that means I drop the name. Okay, I drop the name, then I find that the branch ID depends upon the staff ID. Then we call it is a partial functional dependency. Okay, and there is another type of trivial function, another type of FD that is called trivial. Trivial in the sense that the dependency of an attribute on a set of attribute is known as a trivial dependency if this set of attribute includes that attribute. That means A, B depends on A is trivial. If the FD, in the FD, if B is a subset of A, Okay, in that means if it is a superset, basically B is a subset of that thing, then we call that it is a Sardis. Similarly, in the same thing, actually A depends on A, B depends on B. Naturally, a particular attribute definitely depends upon that particular attribute. So these are all trivial case, but it has a very important role when we'll find out the functional dependency and try to reduce the redundancy. Okay, so that is the reason we need to understand that thing. I have given two more examples, and from this example, I hope that you will be able to understand this thing properly. Okay, now let's try to understand some important point. We have already known that what is functional dependency. Okay, an important consequence of FD is that if y depends on x or x arrow y, okay, holds in a relation, then it also holds in any projection of R that involves x and e. You understand what is projection? That means, say, suppose there are 5 columns, 5 attribute in the relation. I projected there are the x and y is 2 attribute. Okay, that particular functional attribute exists there. Now, out of that 5, if you project only 3, and x and y is also still there, then same basically functional dependency will also holds good for that particular projection. And how to determine FD of the database? That is a very important thing. That is the objective, because how to find out the FDs on a database? Okay, can be determined only by careful analysis of the meaning of the attribute. Mind it, this is the only way. So there is no straight cut mathematical rule that you just impose that thing and try to find out. You have to understand and try to find out this functional. Database designer must have a thorough understanding of the physical system with which the conceptual data model is going to represent. So you have to understand the physical system, you have to understand all the attributes, and then try to find out. After identifying the set of FDs, the DBMS can be asked to enforce this integrity constraint during the update operation. As soon as you find out all the FD, and now the question is, one by one we'll see that how complicated it is. And not only that, say suppose one designer has find out 100 FDs for a particular relation, and another designer can, again, as it is a meaning and your understanding, can find out 1000 FD. Now the question is coming that which one you should take. Okay, that is the interesting problem basically. Finding the FD is one, but at the same time, finding the completeness of the FD, which is redundant, which you should exclude, we can exclude without basically destroying any of the what is called constraint. So all those things are very important. Actually, subsequent chapter we are going to discuss all those things. Okay, so that is very important, that not only finding the FD, finding the minimal thing, which is basically representing the total FD set. Okay, that is basically important. As soon as you got that FD set, which is basically faithfully representing that your DBM database, then only you concentrate that thing. Because why? Because as soon as you try to implement the integrity constraint for a particular FD, okay, which we have already identified, what does it mean? It takes time, because as soon as you do any operation on this thing, if you just give an integration rule, say foreign key relationship or the primary key or some other thing, what it will happen, database will automatically check that thing before doing that operation. What does it mean? That means there is taking lot of time. Okay, so if there is lot of integrity constraint you have imposed on the database, which is unnecessary, that means it will slow down the database. So that is the reason you have to understand it properly. Okay, while selecting a set of FD in relation scheme, we should try to eliminate any redundant. That is the reason that you have to, after identifying the FD, you have to exclude the redundant FD. Okay, do not implement the redundant FD unnecessarily. It will basically take more time for executing any operation. FDs are used in database system to help ensure consistency and correctness. Few FD means less storage space. Okay, and fewer tests is needed. So naturally faster execution. Now come to the actually concept of closure of set of FDs. Okay, because now that means now understand that our objective is not to only to find out the FD. We have to find out the FD, and so that it should cover everything, but it should not contain any actually redundancy also. Okay, that means minimal FDs which can represent everything, all the relationship, all the dependency in the database, you have to find out, and that is a hard job. Okay, and that is the reason we need to understand lot of actually concept, and then you have to apply those concepts on your FDs and try to find out how to reduce it. Okay, all those things we will just cover one by one. For that we need to understand what is closure of set of FDs. In real life, it is impossible to specify all possible functional dependency for a given situation. It's basically very difficult to find out all possible functional dependency. As I have pointed out, one designer may find out the 100, another might find out the 50, another might find out the 1000. Okay, so it's not that actually really an impossible thing. I cannot say that he is wrong, he is right. Okay, but only thing which one is optimal thing, which is contains a redundant thing or not, that you have to examine, and accordingly you have to pick up. Okay, a closure, what is mean by the closure is a set of all possible FDs that can be derived from a given set of FDs. That means I have given a set of FDs. Okay, if you can derive all possible FDs from the set, then you will get another bigger set. Okay, that is basically called the closure of that FDs. Okay, it is also referred to as a complete set of FD. That means, what does it mean? Say suppose you have initially given this is the 2 FD in the, then I try to find out the closure of the FD. That means all possible FD that can be derived from those 2 FD. Okay, and then we can say it is a complete FD set for that particular relation. Okay, so closure is a very important concept. If you try to find, if you find out the closure, then we can at least tell that I get all the FDs which is applied to that particular relation database. If F is used to denote the set of FDs for a relation, then generally closure we just say F plus. This is the mathematical symbol which we can use for defining the actually for representing the closure. Since any legal instance of R in the relational database, F plus F is always a subset of F plus, because in the F plus contains all the FDs, okay, which is possible FDs in that thing. So F is a subset of this. Any set of actually F you suggest, that should be the subset of that thing. Okay. So when we find that you suggest a F, that means a set of FD, and I find out what is the closure of FD. Okay, and after finding, actually after deriving the closure from this thing, okay, if I see that both are equal, then I can say F contains a full family of dependents. Okay, there cannot be any other dependency which cannot be derived from there. Okay, so this is the actually idea of the closure. Even for relatively small, and another interesting thing that if you really start with a very small schema, you'll find that the F plus, that closure, if you try to find out the closure, it might be very large. Okay, say for example, I have not shown you all the possible thing here because it would be actually long list. So I delete that thing, so that is the reason. So I have 3 attribute A1, A2, A3 in a particular relation. I have given this, say suppose I find out from this data that these two relationship exist. FD, okay, functional dependency exists. Then if I try to find out the F plus, what is the method of finding the F plus, and that we will cover later. So this is, if you try to find out all the possible FD, okay, based on this 2 FD, then I'll find that there are 35 FDs. Okay, that means we started with the 2 FD. After identify the 2 FD, we started finding out the F plus, this, that means cover of this particular set will ultimately reach to the 35 FDs. So you understand, if it is only for 3 attributes, you are getting 35. If it is 100,000 attribute in the relation, how big it will be. Bolo.
স্যার বলছি হাউ 35?
এটা আমি দেখাইনি, তোমরা বুঝে বুঝে দেখে বার করতে পারলে বার করো। ওকে, লিস্টটা আছে, কোনো একটা বইতে আছে। I have excluded that list because it's an unnecessary loss. Only thing here, this main thing is that you have to understand this particular closure is a big task. Okay, it can be a big list of FDs. Okay, so how to manage that thing, and this that I will cover. That is much more interesting, and that is the reason I just exclude that list of 35. Okay, you can just find out in any book. There are 35 lists you will get. Okay, maybe 35 or more than that, they will derive something and it will get. So computation of F plus, that means the cover of the particular set of FD from a particular set of FD by a procedure, if we just try to follow a procedure or manual procedure or automated procedure, is certainly going to time consume. If you just try to find out the manually, okay, that all the functional dependency, you will find it out, okay, and then you'll find that for a medium-sized database, it takes months of time to find it out. It is not so easy, okay. So really, it is a time-consuming thing, and to determine the F plus, okay, that now the question is coming, how to find out the F plus. You are starting with a set of FD, how to find out the F plus, and for that you need to know some rules. Okay, then if you just successively apply that rule, okay, on that particular set of that particular set of FD, then ultimately one point of time you'll find that all the possible FDs that you need plus. Okay, and that rules is basically devised by Armstrong, and that is the reason it is called Armstrong axioms. Okay, we'll just see those rules. I'm not going to discuss the proof and all those things because that is not much important for in this class basically, but I have given a short proof here. You can, if you are interested, you can do, but only thing you have to understand this rule so that I can apply that rule and try to find out the A plus. Okay, that is the much more important, that thing. Mind it, R1 to R3, that means first 3 rules are independent. That means none of them can be proved from the other 2. But other rule can be proved from the this using help of this thing. Now just see, first rule is called reflexibility. What is that? If X is a superset of Y, that means, say suppose there is a dependency like this, and X is a superset of Y, or Y is a subset of this. Okay, okay, that means if you have this type of FD, that means X Y depends on X, it is like that, then you can say that Y is a subset of X or X is a superset of Y. Okay, that is the basic. This rule says how it is saying and what is the proof of this, that is not needed here. So, but I have to understand this properly because I have to use it properly. Let's take an example to that thing. Then you will be it will be more clear to you. Say SSN number name. SSN number depends upon the SSN number and name. Okay. Now you just see that the SSN number and name is a superset of SSN number. Okay. So in this way, if you just try to actually find out the FD in a particular database, okay, then if you find this type of thing, that you just identify a set of attribute and identify the superset of that attribute, then you can just clearly establish that particular your relationship or dependency. Augmentation, what augmentation is saying? Say suppose if there is a FD like this, that means Y depends on X, then if you just add another attribute or attribute set in both sides, then same dependency, this type of dependency will hold good. Okay, so that means here if you just see what I have done, I have just union Z in both sides, because it will not, if you just union the same thing in both sides, that particular FD will not break. Same way FD will hold good here. Or we can say like this also, if Z is a subset of W, okay, then we can just say, do that thing also. Okay, in both the cases, that is basically augmentation of FD. That means there is a FD there, you are augmenting it by adding something in both sides. Or in one side, this side you are adding the superset, and this side you are adding the subset. Okay, still that particular dependency will valid. Okay, now just take an example. I'm not touching the proof, because if you are interested, you can, no, because it is a logical thing, so you have to think. It is, I will say, and you will quickly understand that might not be possible. That is the reason I am not covering that part. You understand and think, it is very clear and very easy also. Okay, that is not the problem. Now just take an example. Say I have a name depends on SSN number. Social security name depends on so. Then I can say, if you just add the phone number in both sides, you can say the name and phone number both depends upon SSN number and phone number. Okay, there is no actually confusion at all. Okay, if it is hold, it will also hold. Okay, and that is basically augmentation is saying. You are adding some more attribute in both sides, still the particular dependency holds good. Transitivity, that is very common to all of you. You have faced lot of time this type of thing in different type of example in computer science and in the real life also. Say if X, Y depends on A and Z depends on Y, then we can say Z depends on the X also. Okay, so if this holds good, this will also. Like say here, I have sent zip code, as well as pin code basically. Pin code depends on SSN number, and city depends on zip. Okay, and then we can say city is dependent on SSN number also. Okay, so in this way, these are the three rules we have. This is the most important rule, and you have to apply this rule to find out all the FDs, or find the closure of the FD, or sometimes actually you have to find out the redundancy inside the set of the FDs. Then also you have to apply this rule. That is the only way we apply this rule and try to find out the complete set, which is basically representing that particular database. Now you just see union. Union, what is union? That is X is this and X, these two FD exist. That means Y depends on X and Z also depends on Y. Then you can union it. You know that if there are same set, if you union, that results in the same set. Okay, a single set. Okay, so if you union this side, that means it is X, not X6, because it is same as X. And if you just union Y and J, it is this. What does it actually? Take an example here. Name depends on SSN number. Zip also depends on SSN. Then we can say that name and zip actually depends on SSN number. Okay. Decomposition is another thing which we can may need to use. Say Y, Z are the two attributes or two set of attributes maybe, that which depends on X. Then I can say Y is also depends on X and Z separately. I can say that means I'm decomposing that particular set into two sets and just write these two different FD like this. Okay. Similarly, pseudo transitivity is also there. Y depends on X and Z depends on this. Then we can say that XW, okay, depends on this. Okay, so these are the some rule, 6 rule basically. We have to apply that 6 rules to find out the FDs, closure of the FDs, and then find out the redundancy and all those things. Okay. Now just take an example to clarify all those things. Suppose we have a given relation. This is my relation. That means this particular relation contains 6 attributes. Okay. With a set of FDs, I have given a set of FDs. These are the FDs. Now we have to show that these FD holds for R and is a member of the closure. I do not know what is the total closure. Okay, that means for that actually basically if you try to find out whether this is a member of the closure or not, you have to find out the closure. Okay, from the set of FD you have to find out the closure. And how to find out the closure? From that particular set of FD you have to apply all the 6 rules and then find out the result. What is the result you are getting? And in that particular result, if you just find all the attributes are basically getting in the result, then you can say that this is a closure. Now let's see some example, and let's say this is the given. A actually BC depends on A, B is. I have just taken these two, this one and this one. Okay, I have written this is the given. Then I decompose it, the first one. Okay, I can write as per decomposition rule, I can write A this and A B because I have divided the BC. I just create 2 FD. Now I have another FD that is called, okay, sorry. Now I have augmented the second by adding D. Now that this is the one, okay, I have, after decomposition, I got this one. Then I augment this first one. If I augment that thing, that means I am adding the D in both sides. That is the augmentation I have done. So AD, actually CD depends on AD. Like this I have got. Now, if you just see here, AD depends on CD, and at the same time I have an FD that is CD depends, actually EF depends on CD. If you just write both the side by side, you can just get the, by transitivity AD depends, EF depends on FD. So I will get that particular FD by applying the transitivity rule. If we have these two, then I can write this is the FD exists in that thing. Okay, so if I just decompose the 4, again I could get, I can say that AD, E depends on AD and F depends on AD, like this. Okay, so ultimately after trying to find, I am trying to find out the FDs, different type of FD with the help of the given FD, and ultimately I reach here. So I can say that this is also holds in R. Okay, this particular FD also holds in R. My need here, as my objective is not to find out the closure. As soon as I get that this is fine, I got this one, I can stop it here, no problem. Otherwise, we have to find out all other possible FDs and this. It might be very lengthy procedure. Okay, but here the objective is that you have to say whether that particular FD is holds in the R or not. Then as soon as you find out that particular FD in this result set, okay, you can say that yes, it exists in this. Okay, so based on the set of above inference rule, a simple way to detect and remove redundant FD would be as follows. So naturally, I just try to write down this thing in the steps like this. So here I will just, with the help of example, I will provide you that thing so that you can easily understand. Okay, so naturally, so what we are seeing after doing that thing as an idea that the closure of a set of FDs of interest, definitely we have to find out the closure, and then only we can find out whether a particular FD is there or not, okay, holds good in the relation or not, okay, or at the same time, if you have any redundant FD, you can also delete that particular, remove that thing, as we have seen, but can be very large and take a long time to compute. Okay, but to find out the closure of FD, it might takes a long time. Okay, and that is the reason basically we are not very interesting to find out the closure and all those things, FD's closure. We try to find out whether there is any other technique or not. Okay, because our objective is that first thing is to identify a set of FD and then find out whether it is a complete thing or not, or whether after identifying all the FDs, some of the FDs, try to find out that other FD can be derived from, inferred from it or not, or if I get a set, whether there is a redundant FD or not. That is the main objective of that thing. And that is the reason I will not invest time on this lengthy procedure to find out the closure, because ultimately if you try to find out the closure, and if you write the set, then easily from by seeing that different FD you can infer that whether these are the FDs we do not require. Okay, it is redundant. Okay, that you can find, but generating that closure is time consuming. That is the reason we'll basically sometimes we can take a different technique. And okay, there is a way of doing this without computing the closure states. Okay, actually one thing is that answering is that try to derive this from F using this thing. Okay, one thing I have already given a example of this, trying to find out derive this thing from the actually the FD which is already provided. Okay, by applying the rule. There is another way of doing that thing, that is called closure of attribute, and that is much more efficient than closure of finding the FDs. Okay, that is called the basically closure of attribute. And here in this basically session, basically we'll discuss that closure of attribute and apply that closure of attribute for fruitful way to find out the different actually resolve the different issues while designing the database. Okay, so that is the reason. First, let's see what is the closure of set of attribute. That is more important, that closure, finding the closure of this. Mind it, it does not mean that you cannot do with the help of closure of FD. You can do it, but it is time consuming exercise. Okay. We'll now define the closure of set of attribute with respect to a given set of FD. It will help you to identify how it will help you to find out the super key, because if it is a big table, big database, there are a lot of relations. Okay, for every relations, try to find out the super key might be a very tough job. Okay, so if you just try to understand that this thing, if you understand this thing, then with the help of some algorithm, very simple algorithm, we'll find that you can easily find out what is the super key. Okay, and you can implement that in an algorithm and finding it out also. Okay, as well as finding whether FD can be inferred from a given set of FDs or FD is redundant or not. That means closure of a set of attribute will help you to resolve this type of thing. Finding out a super key, finding out a particular FD which can be inferred from the set or not, or if it is a redundant or not. In this thing we can find it out. After finding the set of fundamental functional dependency in a relation, next step is basically as soon as you find out the functional dependencies, say suppose you have been there, designer job is to find out the super key. Okay, and then only find out the actually candidate key and the key. Okay, first you identify the super key and this set of identified functional dependency play a vital role in finding the key also, and then you find out set of attributes closer to decide whether an attribute of any table is key for that table or not. Actually, a simple meaning is that if you find out the closure of the attribute, okay, you can solve a lot of issues, lot of actually question regarding the database. Which one is the private super key of a particular table? Which one is basically a particular FD which can be inferred from the other attribute? Okay, so that means it is, if it can be inferred, it is redundant. Okay, like this. Now let's try to define what is this set of attributes that are functionally dependent on attribute X is called attribute closure. Now try to define what is attribute closure. That means attribute closure, if you find a set of attributes that are functionally depend upon the attribute, okay, then we call that set of attribute is a closure for X. That means, say suppose we have a attribute X, okay, and you got a set of attribute Y, Z W, maybe 3. Okay, and you find that YZW is functionally dependent on X, then you can say that closure of X is YZW. Okay, that 3. Okay, so there is a way how to find it out, that thing. There is some algorithm that we will discuss. Okay, and it's a very simple algorithm with the help of which, if we just work out some example, then you can understand that how we can easily find it out, that particular closure. Okay, now give a, say, suppose give a set of FD, a relation scheme, and let X be a set of attribute. Okay, I have given X is a set of attribute, and there are maybe given some FD is given. And what is X? X is nothing but a subset of R. That means R has lot of attributes. From there, you are just picking up a set. The closure of X with respect to F, you have given one, some set of FD is already given. Okay, then the closure of X with respect to that FD denote that X plus X. Sometimes we call the X plus F, or sometimes it is simply X plus, indicates that it is a closure of that attribute. Okay, closure is the set of all attribute. Okay, all attribute, you have to find out all the attribute which is a subset, which belongs to the relation, such that that particular attribute set depends on X. Okay, can be inferred from the F using the inference. Here also, if you just see that inference, that rule, we have to apply and find out whether this can be inferred or not. If you infer this thing from that particular set, then you can say A is a closure of X. Okay, that means X plus contains all attributes of R which are functionally dependent on X. That is the actually meaning of this symbol. Okay, that X plus contains all the attributes of R which are functionally dependent on X. Okay, that is the meaning of this. That means if you just find out the closure of X, okay, then that closure actually depends. A is the closure. We can say that it's a closure of X, then we can say this type of actually functional dependency exists. Okay. Now the question is, by reflexibility rule, we can always say that the closure of X contains the X. That means you can add the X also. If you just establish that thing as X depends on X, so after finding the closure, you can always assume that X is also there. Okay, you can just add this X also. Now just take an example and try to find out that thing. Okay, so one by one, then you will be able to more clearer and clear. Say, suppose consider I have a FD like this. Okay, there is a relation which contains A, B, C, D column, and I have find out this FD, only 4 FD. We can infer the FDs using, actually, if you just see that thing, okay, now I try to find out the closure of A and closure of D. Okay, I try to find out what is the closure of A and what is the closure of D. Okay, if you try to find out, then by applying those rules, I can just find out the what are the FDs we can infer from this particular FD. Just see here, it is very simple. I can just divide it AB, BC is there, so I can say AB and AC. Okay, now you see that thing AB. Now if AB is there, so I can union the same set in both the sides. So if I just union A and both the sides, I can just say AB. But in the union set, union is the same set actually. Say I can say A to this. So after applying the union on this, A on this as a union in this particular FD, I can get this one. So naturally I have this 3 FD, and in addition to that, if you just see A, if it is this, then now just see here, A is basically depend on AB depend on A, and D depend on AB. Then if you just take these two, by transitivity, I can say that A depends on D. Okay, A depend actually AB this and ABD. So I can say AD. So this particular FD exists. Okay. Now if it is exists, now you just try to understand this. If you just see A, B depends on A, C depends on A, D depends on A. That means I can say that the closure of A, because all those things B, C, D depends on A. So I can say closure of A, that set contains B, C, D. Now the self is always there. So naturally I can say A plus. Okay, that means the closure of the attribute A is A, B, C, D. Understand? Now if you just see the closure of D, if you see that B is basically here, if you just B is only dependent on D. So naturally I can say that in the closure of D set, B is there and D will be by default will be there. So if you examine the closure of A and B, you can get a very important information that A closure, okay, that means A closure, in the A closure you are getting all the attribute of the table. What does it mean? That means all the attribute depends on A. Okay, what does it mean? It is a super key. A is a super key. Okay, but in this case, if you just see, I have seen the D plus, that means the closure of D, but this closure set contains only B and D. That means B and D only depends on D. That means it is not representing actually, or all attribute is not basically dependent on D. So I cannot take the D as a super key. So in this process, if you really try to find out the closure of any particular attribute or attribute set, and if you find that particular closure contains all the attribute represented in the relation, then easily you can say all the attribute of that relation depends upon the set. What does it mean? That means that particular set is nothing but a super key. Okay, so in this process, we can easily find out the super key. Okay, there is another lemma which is also very important. From this thing, we can also understand lot of other thing, and then we can find out what is the how to find out the redundancy and all other things. What is that lemma saying? That if in an FD this exists, can be inferred from a given set of FDs using the inference rule if and only if. That means you can find out this particular FD by applying the inference rule, okay, only if the Y is in the closure of X. Mind it. Okay, how to prove this lemma? It is not important. Only thing is that this thing you should remember. That means if you just get you can infer that if there is an FD, you can always assume, and it is a valid FD, then you can assume that Y is a subset of that particular closure of X. That means Y exists into that particular closure. When you are finding that thing, you will get Y here in the set. Okay, so that is the meaning of that particular source. So here I have written that thing in that way. In view of the above lemma, we can say that to check whether X, Y, this particular FD exists or not, can be inferred from the set of FD. What we have to do, we have to find out the closure. Okay, and find out the closure and check whether that particular Y exists or not, there or not. Okay, closure set or not, then only we can say that this particular FD can be inferred from that set of FD. That means in other way you can say that FD might not be necessary, it is redundant. Okay, so in this way you can to find out, and if you find out that this particular closure represent all the column of that particular relation, then we can infer that this is a super key. So you understand, with the help of this concept, we can find out both the things, find out the super key as well as try to check whether that particular relationship can be inferred from that set of relationship or not. Okay, and that is the reason actually we can use the closure of attribute to find out this thing, not the closure of functional dependency, because it is a lengthy procedure. Okay, and here you will discuss one algorithm to find out that thing. Okay, that closure of attribute. Sometimes this particular function is called the membership algorithm. Algorithm is called the membership algorithm. Here, what you need to run this particular algorithm, a set of FDs and another FD which you want to check whether it can be derived from those set or not. Okay, and it will return if that particular set is inferred from or derived from that particular set of FD, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So naturally you can say that if returns true, then this particular FD is can be derived from the set of FD which we have supplied. Okay, so that is the algorithm. It is a very simple algorithm, and naturally as soon as you find out all those things in this process, we will find out the super key also, that we will explain with the help of example. Now let's see what it is saying. Say result, say suppose I want to derive the result ultimately. Okay, I initialize result with X. That means here you just see I have the left hand side in X. I want to find out basically the what is the closure of X. Then only you can find out the whether this particular thing can be inferred or not. So I initialize the result with X, because if I try to find out the closure of X, X will be there. Okay, that we have already seen from the other lemma. Okay, so naturally we can say that I start with this X, then look at the FD in F to see if there exists a FD Z or this V in F such that that is it. That means now one by one you pick up the FD from the FD set, okay, and check that thing. What we are saying, checking left hand side. So that means result is X. It is set minded. I have given X minded. It is set. It will enlarge basically ultimately, because ultimately it will contain all the attribute which is the closure of X. Okay. So naturally, what we'll do. This is very important. Now we have to examine one by one FD. Take the left hand side of the FD. Okay, if there is an FD, take the left hand side of the FD. And FD is in X. That means FD is a subset of this result. Okay, if that particular left hand side attribute, okay, or combination of attribute is a subset of the result, it is saying that thing. And another clause is that right hand side, that means this is not in the result. Okay, then you include that union that V into the result. Understand? First take an FD, take the left hand side, check whether that particular left hand side is in the result or not. That means it is a subset of the result or not. If it is result of a subset and you have not yet included the V into that result, then you include the V in the result. It is saying that thing. You union this thing, that means you are including this thing. And repeat this step 2, this step you have to repeat for every FD until and unless you find that there is a result is changing. Okay, as soon as you find that result is not changing, then you stop. Okay, so it is a very simple algorithm. Manually we will see that thing is very simple to find it out. That means you have to take every FD, check whether the left hand side is there in the result or not. If it is there, then check whether the actual right hand side is already included or not. If it is not included, include that. In this way, basically, you are basically creating the result by examining all these things. After creating the result, okay, you have to check whether Y is in the result or not. If Y is in the result, then you can say that X, Y, this particular FD can be inferred. Okay, if that closure, as I have already told you earlier, that if X closure of X contains the Y, then I can say that this particular FD exists, okay, or inferred, okay. So if you just find out the result and check whether the Y is or whether Y is already there or not, then you return true. That means you are saying that this particular FD can be inferred from the set of FD. And if it is not true, then it is false, and you can say that particular FD is not, cannot be inferred. Okay. Now let's examine that thing. Actually, here, if you just see that thing, this is not a very complicated algorithm, but until and unless you try the algorithm with some example, that total knowledge, actually total conception will not be clear. Okay. Now just try to actually apply that thing with the help of example. Okay. How it the particular algorithm works, let's check with the help of example. We have to, what is my objective? I try to find out AG plus. That means the closure of AG. The A and G are two attributes. That means this set, I try to find out the AG plus and find out if AGI can be derived from the given set. I have a set of attributes. I have to derive whether AGI depends on AG, this particular FD. It actually can be derived from this FD or not. How to find out the closure of FJ? Because if I find out the closure of FD and if I check that in that particular set I exist, then only I can say that this particular thing exists. Now let's try. Suppose I have the relation A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Okay, and I have a set of FD. Mind it, who will provide you the set of FD? Say suppose you are the designer, so hopefully you might able to find out maybe 3, 4, 5 FD. Okay, by examining the your data. Okay, by understanding the meaning of the attribute. Then you start from there. Okay, and then actually do everything. Now just see that thing. I have to find out this actually FD. So I pick up the left hand side, because if I try to find out the closure of AG, that closure, in that closure AG will exist. Okay, that is the reason first initialize the result with AG. Okay, as per that algorithm, if you just see that thing. Okay, I am just understanding the algorithm with the help of this example. Now you just see result. Actually, now take the next one. Say A, B, this, now take the this particular FD. Now if you just see A, left hand side already exists there, but B is not there. So I pick up that FD. A is there, so automatically what I will do as per that algorithm, I should include the B. So I have included. So in the after examining that thing, I got this set. Now I examine AC. Next FD I have got, so I got this. I have excluded it from that particular FD set. I consider the next FD. Now A is A. Okay, AC is there, so A is already there, but C is not there. So naturally I include DC. Okay. Now take the GCH. Similarly, GCH, if you just see that thing, A, B, C, and G is there, but H is not there. So I include the H. Similarly, for CG, this I can just find out the I will include there. So ultimately, when I find out the closure of AG, I can say I get A, B, C, G, H, I, all these three. Okay, mind it. Here I have also given A, B, C, G, H, I, everything I have given. I have got. So I can say that AG, I depends on AG. Okay, is very much, I is very much there in the closure. So I can say that this can be derived from this set of FD. So what does it mean? Another way I can say, as I can derive from the set, why then I will again consider this FD. So it is a redundant one. Okay, and at the same time, if you just observe this thing, interesting thing here, that in this process, when you are trying to find out the this thing, then you will get all the attributes. What does it mean? That means AG is nothing but a super key, because all the attribute depends upon the AG. So naturally I can say that this is representing the super key. Okay, here actually I have lot of example here. I will discuss one by one and show you. Okay, if you follow this example, you will be able to understand that how to find out that thing. Okay, because in most of the cases, actually in practical sense, you have to do that thing. If you really going to design a big database and all those things, then you have to apply this concept in this way. Okay, and in the examination and other purpose also, you will find that they will give you some set of FDs, a relation. They will say whether, find out whether this particular FD can be derived from this FD or not, whether it is a key or not, like this. So naturally, by examining lot of example with the help of your this algorithm, will help you to understand the algorithm as well as practicing for solving lot of problems also. Okay, so I will one by one, I will discuss lot of other example and some other concept also in the next day. Okay, so from here I will just cover in the next day. Any question? Okay, I will not actually sharing this material now because it's yet to complete. Okay, I will
Sir,
just complete it and then share. Okay, bolo.
স্যার এখানে বি ইমপ্লাইজ টু এইচ, তাহলে ওইটা রিডান্ডেন্টের জন্য কি ওই কন্ডিশনটা বাদ হয়ে গেল?
Okay, B derived to H. Nah,
হ্যাঁ,
actually, one minute. No. I am not. Actually, what I have done, what is my objective? Find out whether this is can be derived or not. ওকে, যেই মুহূর্ত আমি এখানে পৌঁছে গেছি, ওকে, অ্যান্ড নট অনলি দ্যাট, দেখো যেই এখানে পৌঁছে গেছি আমি তো বুঝতেই পারছি এটা ডিরাইভ, সো আই ক্যান স্টপ ইট হিয়ার। আই মে নট কনসিডার এনি আদার এফডি। এখানে হয়তো আরো 10টা এফডি আছে, আই নিড নট কনসিডার বিকজ আমি তো রেজাল্ট অ্যাচিভ করে গেছি। বাট হিয়ার অলসো একটা ইন্টারেস্টিং থিং দ্যাট if we just consider this also, I cannot consider this. কারণ কি দেখো, B, the left hand side is already there, as well as H is already there. From other FD, H has already included. So naturally, I cannot take that FD. Okay, as per this thing, যদি দেখো যে কি বলছে, যে left hand side is the part of the result set, subset of the result, and right hand side is not subset of the result. ওকে, কিন্তু এখানে কি হয়েছে, এইখানে এসে যখন তুমি এটা কনসিডার করতে যাবে, B is already there, it is subset of this, and H is also a subset, right hand side is also a subset, so I cannot consider this one. Okay, and not only that, here এটার পর যদি আরো কিছু FD থাকতো, আমার কনসিডার করার দরকার নেই, বিকজ আই হ্যাভ অলরেডি অ্যাচিভ মাই রেজাল্ট। আমি I have already actually seen that this particular closure contains all the attribute। আর কোন অ্যাট্রিবিউট আছে রিলেশনে? তো এই কটাই অ্যাট্রিবিউট আছে, আর কাউকে তো